Alright, well, welcome back. In this video, we're going to begin to introduce the idea of how to solve fractional equations. So we begin with an example. These are just regular normal fractions, although we do have some variables involved. And we start to wonder to ourselves, how do we solve this kind of equation? We could, of course, work with things as fractions, but that's usually not the funnest thing in the world to do. So the question becomes, how do we handle... Oh, great. If you haven't met them before, welcome to Red and Pink. Or Yellow and Pink, sorry. They like to interrupt me sometimes and talk. So I'll just stop talking for a moment. Well, they have their conversation. Usually they don't take very long. Ha ha ha. Pig says blast him with an LC missile. Or in other words, what's known as an LCM. Thank you, Pink. LCM is called a least common multiple. Also, you may call it a lowest common denominator. Either name is fine. So it's that number that all of those denominators will go into. In our case, the LCM is 12. Now, how do we blast them with that LCM? Well, the idea is, since every fraction, every denominator will go into 12, if we were to multiply the whole equation by 12, all those fractions would divide into 12. And we're able to multiply or divide both sides of the equation by any number we want, as long as it's not 0. So we proceed to write that down now, 12 times each thing. Now, as I begin to write, since I'm multiplying that 12 times a fraction, remember the number 12 has a 1 underneath of it, so I can write that as a fraction. It's just to help me as I'm multiplying out those fractions. And so just take that 12 times each one of my denominators, or each one of my fractions, sorry. And then we go through and we start to simplify. So in the first fraction, 12 over 1 times 2x over 3. We can cancel out the 3 and the 12. 3 goes into 12 4 times, 3 goes into 3 1 time. And so the result now, the fraction's gone, the denominators are all 1. And we have 4 times 2x, which we can write down as 8x. And then we go through to the next fraction. Right? 4 goes into 4 1 time, 4 goes into 12 3 times. We're left with 3 times 5 is 15, so we can write down minus 15. And then we come to the 12 over 1 and the 1 over 6. We can divide 6 into both 12 and 6. And we do that. Excuse me, I went a little too far there. So 2 and 12, 6 goes into 6 1 time, 12 2 times, so we're left with the 2. Then we go to the last fraction. 4 goes into 12 3 times, 4 goes into 4 1 time. We're left with 3 times 3, or minus 9x. And so now we've taken that fractional equation and transformed it into an equation that has no fractions. In fact, an equation that's fairly straightforward to solve. Remember, solving an equation, we'd begin by simplifying each side if we could. Well, there's no simplifying that we need to do here. So at this point we decide we want the variable on one side. So we can accomplish that by saying, well, let's add 9x to both sides. That gets rid of the variable on the right-hand side of the equation and leaves it only on the left-hand side. And since the variable now is going to be on the left-hand side, we're also going to want rid of that 15 over there. So you can do this in 2 separate steps, or do it in one step together. I'll just do it together. And say I can add 15. And of course, being an equation, I need to add 15 to the other side. Okay, and now we look at what we have. 8 and 9x is 17x. 15's go away. 2 and 15 is also 17. And of course the 9x's go away. So we have the equation now 17x equals 17. And so it turns out the answer to this equation is actually 1. The solution to that equation, that complicated, ugly mess with all those fractions in there, is 1. Now this was a problem with regular fractions, but the exact same idea applies when we're talking about algebraic fractions. Okay, so in our next video we're going to look at the idea of how we find common denominators, and then we'll come back to looking at actually solving equations involving algebraic fractions. So again, in the upcoming video we're going to talk about finding the LCM, the least common multiple, for these algebraic fractions, and then we're going to move on and we'll start to solve some equations.